Hey, howdy, hey, my brewing brothers and sisters. I'm Jamel Zainasheff.
I'm Travis Campbell.
And I'm Mike Persine, and you're listening to Brew Strong.
All right. We're back.
We are back.
We're,
Never left.
we're
If you're
back.
listening to podcasts back to back, this was like 30 seconds later.
We didn't lose all of our crowd when Scott left. That's a good thing.
No, you guys had to go and pee.
What?
I sit here, 3 beers under my belt and looking out for everybody.
You know
That's
what?
what
Hydrate or
I'm
die. All right.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I don't know. This is this is something. Definitely something.
You know what? I will say we totally forgot to mention the blizzard at the Blickman retirement.
Oh,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
wow.
I mean, go figure the Sierras in May.
Yeah,
Holy
that
moly.
that was something because we were staying in Reno.
Yeah.
And so Blickman, Palmer, Justin, my wife, and myself, we were all in my truck and heading over the pass into North Tahoe, which I think that pass in the north, it hits like 9,000 feet or whatever. It
You're on
gets
Mount
pretty
Rose?
high. We came in, we didn't go Mount Rose, we went, what's the other one that cuts around? Goes in there. Anyways,
Anyway.
when we were getting in there in the morning, it was snowing little hard pellets, almost like hail. And we're like, oh yeah, it said it would snow a bit. And then when during the party, I mean, snow's coming down in large chunks. It's snowing pretty heavy. And my truck is filling up, the bed's filling up with snow, the whole thing's getting buried. And my wife's like, we should leave. We should leave. I'm like, it's only like 1:30. Party goes till 5. I'm like, I'm not leaving. She's like, no, we should leave. I'm like, I can't leave now. I said, we got to stay.
Yeah.
So we stayed till about 4. A lot of other people, just like that live in the area were like, oh, we got to get the hell out of here because this is bad. And they were bailing like at 3, and then we stayed till 4. I'm like, okay, it's 4 o'clock. I think we stayed long enough. And since most of the people have left due to the horrible blizzard, we'll go. And we ended up trying to take the route into Truckee and then 80 back to Reno, which I was told was the lowest altitude method of getting back to Reno. But man, the snow was thick and heavy. And the road 267, we got in line to go. Traffic was stopped. We sat there for a good 15, 20 minutes. Nothing moved. Not a single bit of movement. And so Palmer's like, hey, there's all these little side roads. Let's take these side roads. I'm thinking, okay, here's how we're gonna die.
Here's how we're gonna die.
I'm like, all right, what the heck? So I make a Yui and head back, and we start going down these little side roads. And man, I am slipping and sliding. I got it in 4-wheel drive. I got some pretty aggressive tires on there, and they're just completely filling with snow because even with the weight of my truck and all these people in it, I'm not hitting anything that has traction. It's all just snow. I'm trying to drive on snow. And so, we're slipping around. Finally, we get back to a point above where traffic's being held on 267. And we get on there and we make it through, but it was pretty heavy going at a bunch of the time.
But you made it all right. So I had a question about the original the gentleman who won the brew with Blickman and
Kevin Drake.
Brew Strong. Yeah, so was his receipt also the largest Blickman receipt in the pool?
No, I don't think so. I don't think
it just
made
struck
any
me
difference.
Are these leading questions?
Yeah.
Mr. Travis?
I object,
Are you
Your
leading
Honor.
the witness?
I object.
Relevance.
No. It was completely on the up and up.
I'm sure it was. I just thought it was funny.
it was well, and I was just like, yeah, I mean, we picked someone that I could drive to. That worked for me. I'm like, all right.
I think, yeah, like
Bomber
excuse to
flew
go
up
to
to my
Tahoe.
house
I'm
and
in.
we just drove. Yeah. And we're all like, yeah, we'll go to Tahoe.
Ah,
I was thinking I was going to have to go to Indiana or something. It would probably be in the winter. God knows.
or
One of the things I
Houston in the
wanted to
summer.
say about the joy of Blickman Engineering is continuing on under the stewardship of Drew Barnes, who is in charge now, owner of Blickman Engineering, and he has been there all along. It was Blickman's right hand man, and has been, the creator of a lot of this stuff. And one of the new products that they've come out with is this 3.5 barrel Pro Surface electric brewing system, and they call it Pro Surface because all your elements are hidden and underneath the kettle surface, and so you get they're in contact with the kettle. You get good heating, but you don't have to worry about cleaning these things, and you don't have to worry about them being in the way. If you're whipping your mash paddle around or doing other things like that. So really a unique design, and another great product from Blickman Engineering. If you're looking at home brewing or professional brewing, they've got it all. Everything from the more frugal anvil systems, anvil equipment, up to the highest bells and whistles. They've invented it all. They've got it all. They make it all, and all at very reasonable prices. So check them out, blickmanengineering.com. Great folks, and I'd appreciate it if you would send dear Mr. Drew an email. Tell him, Drew, thank you for sponsoring Brew Strong. I enjoy listening to the show. Thanks for paying for it, so I don't have to. I'll check out Blickman Engineering products next time I'm at the homebrew shop. You can send that to feedback at blickmanengineering.com. It's Blickman with a B and a couple of N's.com.
SEH.
This is CH in there. There's an L in there too, I think.
Yeah, I would like to throw in, cruise the website. It's really cool. There's some really neat gadgets that are very eloquent and simple, but work very well. And like the beer gun and the auto sparge, and
right.
Probably got the best homebrew beer pump in the game right now. So
nice.
There's that.
There, spoken like a true homebrewer. Nice. All right. Today we're going to do live Q&A. Here's the thing. When your questions come in, I get them on the next show. So if you've got questions, go ahead and reach out, send them into Brew Strong at thebrewingnetwork.com, and we will get to them ASAP. So we're up on those, and then I mix in a couple of the old questions. Again, my promise to you is, no question goes unanswered. So the ones from the past, they're getting mixed in. They'll still get answered. I'm never going to leave a homebrewer question undone. But we're up to date on everything. If you've sent in a question recently, you'll probably hear it on this episode right now. You guys ready to kick this off?
Do it.
I got a good one here. Lauren writes out about gas line sanitization, which I thought was quite interesting. I don't think we've ever had this question ever on this show, and we've had a lot of questions repeated multiple times. You guys, there are free archives you can listen to. But Lauren writes, gents, I've listened to every Brew Strong and Jamel show, Brewing with Style, Can You Brew It at least once. Yeah, damn, I've done a lot of shows. And thanks for your shows and how to brew. My beers have evolved from mediocrity to excellence. Thank you. You're quite welcome, Lauren. My question today is about gas line sanitization and a kegging system. I've always sanitized new or unsealed gas lines before hooking them up to a keg, and spray sanitized regulator and tank hookups when swapping tanks. Sanitizing the hookups feels a little half-assed because I've never sanitized the interior of a regulator. Is it necessary to soak regulators in sanitizer prior to hooking them up, or could this damage the regulator? Alternatively, will CO2 destroy unwanted contaminants in my lines if the airspace has been purged for a while? Gratuity in beer, Lauren.
Makes me wonder if Lauren sent you beer you didn't share with Mike and I.
I'm not saying.
I have thoughts.
Uh-huh. Do they have anything to do with this?
They do have something to do with this.
Okay. All right.
So
go ahead.
The chemical engineer in me wants to say that CO2 is not conducive to any kind of life. I mean, you're not supplying any of the necessary ingredients for life to take hold in that regulator besides CO2, I guess, for algae or something, but there's no other minerals or water or anything. And as long as you're not running beer back into your gas line all the way to your regulator, I would think that, well, but for me, I've never done that, so I have never worried about that, and I've never had that problem. So for me, it's always leaking the CO2 because of a bad gasket or something.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's my thoughts.
I think it's interesting. I don't think I've ever sanitized my gas line before.
Not even initially, Jamil, like as you put it in service.
No, I don't think I have.
Yeah.
One of my reasons I haven't is when they extrude that vinyl line, it's like a molten plastic, and I don't think that there would be anything alive in there. I think when they cool it down, they blow air on, or they do whatever to cool it on the outside of the line, not the inside. So I think it would be safe. I could be wrong. Somebody who manufactures tubing, please write in and tell me.
I'd like to take your approach on yeast, Jamil.
Yes.
You know Chris White makes outstanding yeast.
Yes.
And you go to a very nice homebrew shop and you buy it.
Yes.
And you're not sure what happened between those two.
True.
Yeah. So even though my homebrew shop, I'm a fan of it. I'm going to give them all the business I can. Yeah, there's a little bit of grain dust floating around there.
Sure.
Yeah. So I get a good rinse and a good sanitize. And I have been known, Mike, to backfeed some CO2 lines. Now, if I do a pre-charge and a shake at 30 psi and I hook it up and I forget, back into my fermentation fridge, my serving fridge, and I forget that CO2 line needs to be at 30 psi, or I'll backfeed it. Now, it's been a few years, which means I'll do it next batch. But yeah, I've backfed a few. I've backfed it all into my manifold. I pull it apart, we rinse it, resanitize it, put it all back together.
Sure.
But what you said, Mike, I'm glad you said that. Because I think anaerobic, no oxygen, but pure CO2 is worse than just anaerobic. So I really appreciate what you said there, Mike.
Well, yeah, if you get beer in those lines, you need to clean and sanitize. Not just sanitize, but clean and sanitize. Yep. The other thing is, I usually thus use check valves in your system to keep that from happening. And maybe you get a little bit up past the ball lock, and then you can just replace that chunk up to the check valve. But I guess other than when I first started, I've bought boxes of beer line and boxes of gas line from the main. They come in a box sealed up. I don't think there's an issue there. And so I've never really bothered. I think I may have sanitized some line. I sanitize line if I'm doing transfers or things like that. I don't trust that. The transfers, If the beer line is just going out of the keg to the faucet, when I hook it up, I run it. I think that's good enough. And I believe that, the gas line, I don't really have a problem. Like Mike, I think, it's an inhospitable environment. I think that the regulator, I would imagine the regulator is potentially more of a danger area than the tubing is. I mean, we're spending a lot of time on this, but
Let's see. How long have Lauren wait for us to answer this question? No, it's pretty new.
The other point I'd like to say is if you're having an issue and you're getting contaminated beer and you've done all your homework and you're like, what is going on? And the gas lines are the last thing.
Right.
But I just don't think
snap off a fresh piece.
Right. That's what I was going to say. I got the box and I would snap myself off a fresh piece. But I would think the regulator could be potentially more of an issue because the regulator is assembled from parts. They're not sitting in a clean room when they assemble these regulators. There's people wherever they are. These parts come tumbling down the conveyor belt or whatever. They're into bins and they sit there and they just assemble a whole bunch of regulators. I doubt they're wearing masks or anything like that. They could cough, people working these jobs may not have time off and they're coughing and hacking and who knows what's going on.
My final thought on this is the real key that I do to try to mitigate any kind of old, stale, anything in these lines is to purge with Viga before you hook it up to any keg and so just really run some, give you a 10 count of where you're just holding the valve open or you got the thing unlocked or whatever you're doing and really flush that line. And so you're getting good, clean CO2 and anything that would have been carried like mold or dust. Bacteria on the dust has been pushed out through this vigorous burst. Like turn your regulator up and really run it through there.
Well, and because when you hook up a new tank of CO2, there's some oxygen in your the little bit of line and things like that. So it is good to go ahead and purge all that out. So I as well would always purge, very vigorously with to purge that out. So I think the question about should I soak a regulator in sanitizer, I think Lauren knows that it's going to jack up the regulator.
I'm worried about damaging it.
Although I have known regulators filled with liquid that worked fine afterwards. Depends how corrosive the liquid is.
I think you can run it through the process side of it, the gas side of it. Yeah. But soaking the whole thing where you get it on the backside where the spring's at, I expect failure to occur sooner or later.
Yeah, the corrosion would be the issue. It other than that, it's springs and diaphragm. It's not like electrical or anything, so it should be fine until it starts to jack with it. But there you go. Good question. Like I said, we have not had before. So
I feel like we could have called Lauren and answered the question directly.
Why do you think that?
Do
you think I know him?
The cell number is in his or her email.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like that would have been. We could have done live. I don't have the technology for that. Maybe you do, but
I will say that the cell number, like
a listener call.
We could have. Maybe we'll do that in the future.
Hello,
when you're asking those
here to answer your question.
When you're asking those future questions, maybe I will reach back out and see if you want to be on the show. If it's a good question, maybe that'll happen. Yeah,
if you guys start taking my ideas seriously, we're going to be in trouble.
The phone, I know the phone number is apparently in the San Francisco Bay Area, so hopefully he's listening. All right, let's do this. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll have more of your questions right after this. All right, we're back. You're listening to Brew Strong. We're doing some live Q&A. If you have questions that you want to ask us, you can send them in to brewstrong@thebrewingnetwork.com. and we will get your questions on the air, hopefully by the very next show. Let's see here. Jim asks, hey guys, a question on yeast character. I brew a lot of beer, but this experiment happened with mead. But it made me think. I brewed a mead with too high a honey to water ratio. Good character after aging for 2 years, but still too sweet. I diluted the mead to a better ratio and repitched yeast, fermented and perfect sweetness, but now no character. Aging it now again. What killed the character? Sorry, this is a basic question. Love the show. Cheers, Jim. Do you guys have thoughts on that?
Yeah, yeast character comes from yeast growth. So I would think pitch rates and temperature control are huge on that. And to get your yeast to express the flavors you want, you need to pitch them correctly and have them at the correct temperature and use the correct yeast. That's probably goes without saying, but I'm not really big on meads though. So if you guys, I mean, honestly, I'm a brewer, not a meader. But if you guys have this stuff,
so I mean, if you have basically a finished product with still has residual sugar, he doesn't say how much he dilutes it. I don't know how much he may or may not have diluted it. I imagine he probably didn't do what we normally do to help yeast growth, such as oxygenate, because you probably wouldn't want to do that to what you think was a finished product.
and that's where I was curious. Is he talking about that mead that was too sweet? He watered down and then added more yeast, or did he make another batch and it didn't have the flavor that he wanted, even though the dilution was correct?
I diluted the mead to a better ratio.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, sound like he diluted the
finished mead.
Okay,
sweet mead.
well that one, yeah, you're not going to get a whole lot of yeast growth, and alcohol is going to be inhibiting a lot of things, and you're just not going to get that.
Well, I think, I think Travis was on to something here with, we don't know how much he diluted it. Let's say you have this, too sweet a mead, and you dilute it by 1,000%. It's mainly water at that point. If you add just 5% water back to it, well, then but it's going to dilute your honey character. And I think he's talking more possibly about the honey character. What really makes a mead is fermentation character, like Mike's saying, but it's also the honey. And what people often lament in poorly made meads is there's no honey character. And so I think that has to do with it may may have had great honey character originally, but that was probably because it was very concentrated and was too sweet.
I have another thought too about that. So he liked the character, but it was too sweet, which could have been a stalled fermentation as a result of poor nutrition and or yeast pitch rates or temperature control. So
a lot of times,
again,
a lot of times nutrient dosing, things like that, or
just too high alcohol content, so it's
too high
out.
alcohol.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
You used a yeast that was too alcohol intolerant.
Yeah, well, they use vicious yeast for meads that I'm aware of, but still, if you're just too much honey, it's going to stall. I don't care what your yeast is.
You'll end up with like a dessert mead.
Yeah, but like you said, so then the fermentation does do well, and it takes all that honey that was remaining and ferments it out.
Right.
You lost your honey.
Right.
Yeah.
And people do use high levels of honey to water ratio, high gravity meads in order to have it kind of stall out and remain sweet when you're making a sweet mead. Less when you're doing a semi-sweet, and even less when you're doing a dry mead. But still, it could be a combination of those things. Fermentation. It could be, just that, it was watered back too much. Or had it been at the appropriate ratio initially, it could have, ended up this way anyways. it could have been that there just wouldn't have been enough honey character. I think it depends on how sweet it was. You could have made another mead, a lighter mead, and added that to this blend it to dilute it down instead of just using straight water. Sometimes just straight water really thins things out a bit.
Yeah, so also could have just remade the mead, assuming you get the same honey, and make it just a little bit smaller, or 2 or 3 now. Only re-ferment part of it and blend it back.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Just concepts that are probably far too late to help Jim out right now.
Well, yeah, and if he wanted to try something to salvage this, I would maybe sulfide it, Campden or other yeast preventing products, and then just add a tiny bit of yeast into it. It'll make it sweeter again, but it could enhance the character of the mead again. Just another thought if you're trying to save it. All right, thanks for your question, Jim. Much appreciated. Okay, let's
of note, Jim is in some of my homebrew clubs, by the way.
Oh, well, there you go. Maybe he could have called in.
There you go.
Imagine
or if I show up to the meetings, he could have just discussed it,
We haven't call-ins is difficult without without having a bevo around to help you.
Yeah. And the board, whatever other technology she had.
There you go.
We have some excellent mead makers in the group, and Jim can get some more advice on that, I'm sure, if he brings that sample to the club.
Bring the stats too. Like, do you have the gravities and the things that happen kind of more technically that could yield more?
That would have helped us. Would have helped us in answering the question. All right. Darren writes, "Hello, I'm wanting to get into homebrewing. Is there an episode in your podcast that might help me get started? I'd rather not start with a brew kit, but with the raw materials. Please advise. Thanks, Darren." So he wants to start off at all grain.
I'd start off with a kit. And I'm
almost an all grain kit.
No, I'd start with an extract kit.
Extract, yeah.
And I bet. Well, you don't need the extra complication. And as he's asking for episodes, Mike might have looked them up already. I didn't have a chance to.
I didn't have a chance to either, but I know there's ones in there about going from extract to all grain. I would recommend. And this is like
it's like 17 years of shows. I am not going back.
Well,
317. There's no easy way to search.
There is one in there where you're going from extract to all grain. I would definitely recommend, though, and this is for all new brewers, get yourself How to Brew and Brewing Classic Styles and read them both. And use them both as references for recipes for the Brewing Classic Styles, and then any kind of initial starting brewing questions. How to Brew is going to get you all the way there. Podcasts can get you so far, but a good book and a good reference and there's so much more information, and it's so much easier to access because it's sitting on your desk,
I would also have to
go look through 17 years of podcasts to try to find the right one.
I would also recommend How to Brew, just having it on hand, if you got brewing questions, because there's Google or Bing or whatever else there is. But the problem is, Travis shaking his head, the problem is the quality of the information you're going to pull up. A lot of times you can't really trust a lot of the stuff on the forums and elsewhere out there in interweb land. Somebody's setting up their own blog and all that. They mean well, but sometimes they may have been misinformed from somebody else or something. There could be a lot of error in the equation there. Whereas How to Brew, I think, pretty much all that is 100% solid, and you can trust that it'll steer you in the right direction. And then you can listen to podcasts and, search the internet for more information,
And from my recollection, you have always promoted John's book. It's a great reference.
It's a great reference.
Yeah.
And if there's one other analogy I could make, kind of these books on the topics that have been vetted and referenced, and they use expert opinions and other expert information, are kind of the core of what you want to build your brewing around. And then podcasts, like you said, can sprinkle little bits of knowledge that maybe are new or weren't discussed in that edition or whatever.
Right.
That can kind of then just kind of push your knowledge a little further. So I always thought a podcast is like of a little push, and then the books and the foundation were really. And I hate to say that because you got to sit there and read your 500-page how to brew book, but that's just if you really want to get. And I felt like John Palmer's a great writer, and it's really interesting, and he doesn't really just bore you to death. I mean, there's good stuff in there. So, I mean, I even got guys like at Alibi during the Blickman retirement party saying like, I bought this book because of I need a reference that I can trust, and these are professionals. So there you go.
Yeah, I would say definitely how to brew. I think Travis actually brings up an excellent point as to starting with extract and specialty grains, because the majority of the brewing process that is important comes after making the mash to get sugars. That's all that does.
Yeah,
and save up for temperature control.
The most important part is handling things in a sanitary way, cleaning things properly, and fermenting properly, pitching the right amount of yeast, packaging properly. That is 95% of your process. The all grain thing is really not that important, especially if you're using quality extracts. So start there. I think Travis had an excellent point. Travis gets 5 points for that recommendation.
Oh, now we're scoring. Scott blew us out on the first episode anyway,
Again.
Right.
I feel like this is Whose Line Is It Anywhere, where the rules are made up and the points don't matter.
It all matters.
At least half of that's correct.
Yeah. It all matters. Yes. Making great beer matters.
Well, the wizard has been exposed.
Who's whizzing and exposing what?
There you go. All right, let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll have more of your questions right after this. All right, we're back. You're listening to Brew Strong, and we're doing a live Q&A. We're answering your questions. If you have questions and you're listening live, you can just bip on over to the comments section on the video on the Brewing Network page and type in your question right there, and we'll see it pop up, and we'll 99% of the time we get to all of them. We'll prioritize those over the ones that have been emailed in, but hey, you can also email them in to brewstrong@thebrewingnetwork.com, and we're getting to those quite quickly, usually in the next episode. So go ahead and send them in, and we will get to them.
These emails have waited 10 years. These Facebookers shouldn't have to wait that same length. We should just, like you said, we answer the people that are on with us, with us on the show.
Yes.
These emailers, they can wait another couple months.
Yeah, we value the live listeners. They're our favorite.
There you go. All right. So Nick has a DME question. He says, "Hey Jamel, longtime listener of Brew Strong / Brewing with Style. Hoping for a little input from you. Lengthy explanation, but simple question, I think. Backstory. Normally I'm an all-grain brewer, but for a change of pace, I planned a series of extract with steeping grain, partial boil, stove top brews, 3-gallon boil on. I ended up ordering a 50-pound sack of DME. After the first brew, I decided I would like to streamline the deceptively difficult step of adding the remaining portion of the DME at the end of the boil. Steaming, dumping, exhausting amounts of stirring, etc. just seemed like a real hiccup in an otherwise simple brew day. So as my plan, several days before my brew day, I will take the DME and boil, then refrigerate 1-gallon jugs of a high gravity wort, thinking 1080. This way, at the end of my boil, I can simply add this high gravity wort to the carboy to reach my desired original gravity, and cold pre-boiled water to reach desired volume, 5.5 gallons. I would just get some LME and use it for future brews. But since I have this 50-pound sack of DME, I'm eager to find a solution to this annoyance. I would only be doing this for the end of boiled DME edition, not for the pre-boil one. Thoughts on this? How long do you think this refrigerated wort would remain high quality? Thanks for everything you do for the homebrewing community. All right. I had actually already answered on this one because he reached out via email and I think Facebook and every other possible. I think he was in a hurry for an answer.
Well, he needs to have an answer while he still has 45 pounds left of his 50-pound sack of DME.
There you go. So one thing I mentioned was when you're dissolving DME, and this is counterintuitive, you mix it with cold water and it will mix in super easy. If you try and add that to hot water, if you try and throw it in at the end of the boil, it will just float on the surface and clump up into balls that you have to break up. And like he's experiencing, it's just a royal pain in the butt. So mix it with cold water. This is the way I make starters. I take cold water. I measure out DME in a jar, add cold water in my nutrient, and then shake it up. It all dissolves, and I put it in my pressure cooker and done. So it's just so easy to make starter wort. But if you try and mix it with hot water, it just is a giant pain. For storing wort that has been boiled, that's where it gets tricky because you have to worry about things like botulism spores. If you are not canning it and ensuring that it's sterile wort, storing it can be an issue. However, if it's boiled and it's stored cold in the refrigerator, in the containers, in the handling of it was all sanitary, I think it's fine. If you don't see
a few days,
yeah,
a couple weeks,
definitely for a couple of days, few days, couple of weeks, probably, if good refrigeration. If you don't see if the wort's clear when you put it in, and then you don't see any sort of haze forming in it, then there's probably nothing alive in it. If you see bubbles on the surface or surface action starting to form or something forming on the surface, then you have a problem. If you see it becoming hazy, you have a problem. If you see pressure building up, if you use a lid on it, and then when you open it, it goes, right, that's a problem. So things like that are things to look out for. One of the things in his process that concerned me about storing wort is that botulism spores, like we mentioned, botulism is like a bacteria that forms a spore, or it's able to sporulate. It's able to kind of encapsulate and protect itself, and that's why it survives boiling. But it gets in another environment, then it opens up and it starts creating these botulism toxins. The good news is you can boil and destroy the botulism toxin.
You can.
Yeah.
That's what I wasn't aware of.
It can be destroyed by boiling, but better if you don't in the first place. But so if he was like, yeah, I'm storing it in the refrigerator for up to a week, and then I'm putting it in my boil kettle, and it's being boiled for 60 minutes, I think your safety factor goes up. Still, if
he's gonna reboil it. Yeah,
if you can pressure cook these things, 15 psi for 23 minutes, then it's sterile. And large mason jars, I got some pretty big size ones. You could use those. Again, super easy to do. Yeah, so I hope that helps.
I think
You guys
Mike's
have
gonna come
anything
in
to
some
add?
good stuff. But
My
Mike,
my only thought
before
on
you,
this, what? Oh, go ahead.
I think as a Cammy, you're gonna have some good stuff here. I really do. Could you effectively make LME to a point where things like botulism couldn't stand the high sugar content like they don't with honey? Is that a thing?
Yeah, you'd have to vacuum distill it though, and if you
Okay.
didn't want to change the flavor.
Okay. That's fine.
Well,
I would think if you could make the extra gallons of stuff with cold water and then make it down to the boiling wort and like use that heat to kind of sanitize it, make it the day of instead of making it and storing it for however long. That would kind of mitigate the risk. But like everything that's already been said, I mean, if you follow the best practices, and then you know if the container's pressurized, that's bad. Haze is terrible. These kind of things that can signal some sort of contamination. But
I think the big problem he was having was that it was just difficult to get the DME into solution. And I think again,
right,
starting, mixing with cold water,
yeah,
you could mix that
yeah,
up on the side while you're boiling and all that, and then pour that in and account for the water
yeah.
addition
I,
at the end of your boil it for a little bit,
right.
you know.
I really love using my stir plate. Like I will add all my DME into cold water and
It
just
makes it. Yeah.
turn it on and leave it for 15 minutes, just mixing. And like you said, I feel like the cold water with time, it's fine. Great. So
I want Nick to write us back and let us know how much of that 50-pound sack he got to use before it turned into a brick.
Well, I think this question, let's see, was April 15th
I still got a
of this
bunch.
year.
Mhm.
So, like I said, I'm on top of it. We're getting these questions answered. All right. Gavin asks about starches and proteins. He says, "Hey guys, I'm currently studying for the Master Cicerone exam and came across a couple of questions I'm struggling with. First question is, describe 3 attributes starches contribute to finished beer. And then the second question is, describe 3 attributes proteins contribute to finished beer. Again, this is to finished beer. I can only come up with one for each: body and head retention. I love the show, although sadly I have not listened to that many shows lately, as I have recently been hired as the head brewer at a brewery, coupled with studying and a rowdy 2-year-old. Thanks for your time and appreciate any feedback. Cheers, Gavin." All right.
Hope his 10-year-old's helping him brew by now.
So the protein one, that was easy for me. That one, I can come up with several. Foam, head forming proteins. Haze,
Yep.
protein contributes to
That's what
haze
I
if you're
had.
making a hazy beer, something like that. And flavor stability. You could also add, potentially, people say, mouthfeel, flavor possibly, and color, and nutritional. The proteins have a nutritional factor to them as well. I think the ones that the Cicerone is looking for, I've never taken the test, but I assume it's probably foam, haze, and flavor stability. Would you guys
You
have?
don't think it's the more the mouthfeel than the flavor stability?
Could be. Maybe that's what they're looking for.
I'm not taking it either. Is that Ray? Is that Ray's test?
Yeah, Ray. I think Ray just sold the Cicerone program.
Oh, did he? Did he? Okay.
Yeah, I think the big one for me was haze. I mean, proteins are
Right.
pretty much.
Now, what about for
and then
starches?
yeah,
They're similar, no? I mean, starch can leave you a haze, no?
Yeah.
Temporary haze.
Yeah. For starches, I was thinking sweetness. Yeah, starches and sugars. It's essentially starches, sugars. They're all, starch is more complex sugar.
Right. I
Sugars
mean,
come
like a
from the
raw potato
starches.
versus a
Yes,
cooked potato.
right.
Um,
Um, so I got to think sweetness, color, again, color from some of the starches, flavor, body. Um, what answer do you think they're looking for in this stroke test?
I would think the body, and I still feel like that's. I mean, as you said, Mike, it may not be a permanent haze, but I would think a starch would leave a haze,
Yeah.
which will affect color. So maybe we're looking for that.
I mean, dextrins. They're talking about
Mhm.
Yeah.
dextrins. Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
would think that's a mouthfeel thing, but the mouthfeel kind of splits in two, where like you have a perceived sweetness, a fullness, kind of this roundness, kind of it can soften the flavor of a beer. I feel like at least like those dextrins kind of give that fluffy,
Yeah,
soft
I think
round.
it can mask other flavors or mute other flavors,
Yeah.
like you're saying. Yeah, kind of softness or a suppression of other
Right.
characters. Oh, good question.
Do you feel
All right,
better getting this one off your list, Jamil?
I like getting them all off my list. Here's one. Actually goes back to 2017. Rod was asking about the yeast cell to starter volume ratio. He says, "Oh, learned ones. Uh, in your September 26, 1916, really, or 2016, must be 2016. He does not use 4 digits for the year. So I'm assuming maybe he means 2016.
I mean, I don't think he's
Considering
talking about the psalm. So.
we've been covering them all these years, and the show goes back that far. The Q&A podcast, John mentioned a table he plans to include in the next edition of How to Brew, showing how to balance the number of yeast cells to pitch to a starter with the starter volume. If I promise to buy a copy of the new How to Brew when it is published, will you tell me what size starter you recommend for a 5-gallon batch of double IPA with a starting gravity of 1070? And how many Wyeast 1056 cells to pitch to that starter? How about if the specific gravity is 1080? I have a 5-liter flask, oxygenate the starter wort, and put it on a stir plate. Thanks in advance, Rod.
Oh, Rod,
All
there
right.
was such a good calculator back then. Such a good calculator.
Yes. I need to rebuild that calculator. Anybody want to build a calculator for me?
I tried to send a few people to your way, and I guess they just weren't dedicated enough to get it done for you. I
Yeah.
apologize for those jerks that I sent your way, Jamil.
Yeah. Not to name drop places that should sponsor us but don't, but More Beer has a really good yeast starter calculator.
Uh-huh.
It even lets you pick which model based on what type of starter, like if you're stirred or shaken or
Uh-huh.
so
Similar to the Mr. Multi calculator. You know, the Mr. Multi calculator was the very first. There was no yeast calculator out there ever till that one came out. And then everybody just knocked me off.
I think
I have
there's
an
also a
Android emulator
table
on my
in the yeast
computer.
book.
There is. It's a nomograph, so you can cross it this way,
Yeah.
that way to get the line. But I have an emulator running on this computer, so I can run your calculator because my current phones reject that older
Yes.
version of the Android app. So I
Yes.
use
Yes.
Blue somebody's
We
emulator, and I can still run the calculator.
gotta build a new calculator.
Yeah.
Let's get that done. I also had a whole design worked out for stepped starters as well
Mhm.
that I
Oh,
wanted to
really?
put in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had to do interesting things with yours to look at stepped concepts.
Yeah, you can do
And
it, but it would be so much easier if it just handled it for you.
yeah, and Chris is the biggest one that screwed you coming up with these 1.5 packages.
Right.
Omega doing 2.0 packages is no big deal. That's easy math. But a 1.5 package, that
No,
makes
I
me
could.
use my brain.
Yeah, I needed to update it with all the new packages that are available, things like that. Maybe in a commercial version. There's a lot of opportunity there. Somebody wants to do the work, I can give you all the information. Um, let's see here.
Are we gonna give them the numbers? I mean, I'm
Yes.
sure
All right.
this
So
gentleman he brewed his
right.
beer a long time ago, so he doesn't really
So
need the yeast counts, does he?
no, but I think the question is a good one. And what I want to know is how you guys figure out how much yeast you're going to pitch. How do you go about it?
You want to hear mine? This is
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
So I read in the yeast book about your model, and then I actually found that more beer calculator that has the Chris White model but stirred. And so I used that. And what I did is I iteratively added more yeast I needed. And then I put it in Excel and did a polynomial regression and figured out a model that I just my recipe designer tells me how many yeast cells I need for my pitch rate, and then this thing using a macro can solve for the starter size. And that's how I do it. That's way more than most. You can just use the calculator on Mr. Malty, or
Well,
that's what I do.
whenever it exists again,
I
or
like it because
or
I can quickly, the recipe spits the number out, and then with
mhm,
one click I get my number. So
there you go.
The
Okay,
website's long since dead because it requires Flash, and Google said we're not doing Flash anymore. But I still
right.
have the app. I paid for that
Yes,
app, Jamel. You might not have gotten $5, but
I did
somebody got
not.
$5.
I did
somebody,
not.
We were friends. I still bought it at least once.
yeah, it was a little after my time, but
Okay,
like I said, I built my own like little model in Excel.
you mean
And
before your time?
yes.
Okay,
What you
there you
drinking,
go.
Mike?
Right. How strong is that beer you're drinking? Was Travis? Travis, how do you go about it? You're using the Mr. Multi app still?
Always. The only thing I ever do is sometimes I'll use Beersmith strictly to figure out how much DME I need because I'm going to do X liters at 1040, and
Mm-hmm.
Beersmith has it has its own calculator, which I don't use the calculator, but I use the starter size part of it to tell me how many ounces of DME I need to make X
Right.
liters of 1040 wort to make my starter.
Well, here's the thing I would say is, um, like Travis or Mike, find a calculator or create a calculator or do whatever, Beersmith or whatever. All the calculators are fine. Well, I assume all the calculators are fine. Maybe some aren't, but start working with a calculator and see how your beer turns out. And if it seems like it's calculating too little, well then, maybe you still use it and just, you know, up it by 10% or whatever you're finding you're short of. And you just keep using that. Or, reduce it by 10% if you think you're doing too much. Chances are you're not doing too much. You just kind of want to know what the minimum is that'll get you, over the finish line, with great beer. So I think that's really the takeaway from this is,
So
find yourself a process. We get the Mr. Multi one working again. Um, then we'll go ahead and uh, announce that here, and it'll be free. You guys can use it.
you need a summer intern from UC Davis to redo the tests with,
Uh-huh.
because Chris says the viability of his new packaging is significantly better than when you
Right.
were doing your testing. So we
Uh-huh.
need you to get an intern over the
Right.
summer to redo all that testing you did, because
We
the
need,
biggest difference I see once you dial in the X million per Plato per blah blah blah,
right.
the aging is different,
Yes.
and your aging is
Uh,
built on real aging, and everybody else's aging is built on yours or other bullshit.
right.
You know,
So yeah, what I did back in the day was I gathered packages from a number of different homebrew shops and different strains. And some of the strains just don't last very long at all. And I also thought, oh, I need to really do strain specific data.
Ooh, that's a lot.
But yeah, it was just so much. I was just like, wow, that's unrealistic. So I had to kind of go like, okay, if you're using this for like, I forget, it was one of the London yeast. I think it was 013 or something like that. And man, that stuff died at a heartbeat. It was dead, within a month or two of, being on the shelf. I mean, 100% dead. There wasn't a live cell in that thing. And I'm just like, well, so, you had to, kind of take that into account. You can't just assume that everything's, oh, it's fantastic and measure it in the lab where at the manufacturer. That makes no sense at all, because that stuff gets shipped. Who knows how long it sat on the hot truck? And I went to too many homebrew shops, and there's the box of yeast sitting on the floor. It's all hot. It's all warm. Been sitting there for a day because they're too busy. Because it's usually one person struggling to make a business happen. And they got way too much work, too many customers to deal with, so they haven't been able to put it away into the fridge. That can be an issue. So you just never know how it was handled. And you had to be a little more pessimistic in what, because the problem, the thing I always that I felt is like, if you use the Mr. Multi calculator, you would never screw up a beer. It would always work out. You would always get good fermentation. If you use one of the others, it was just like, well, yeah, in a grand scheme of things, yeah, you didn't need as much yeast. Maybe you saved yourself 50 cents or $1 or $2, but you could really screw up your batch. And that was what I was trying to avoid. So I don't know. Maybe mine's too pessimistic for people, but I can pretty much guarantee that if you used it, it didn't screw up a batch. All right, one more before we take a break. Matthew asks, he says he wanted to know about the Brew Strong schedule. He's a homebrewer in Slovenia. Ooh. And he also had questions about a competition they do for homebrewers over there. He says the event's going to take place in June this year. We have to make 6 different beers, a braggot, an American amber ale, a Czech or German Pilsner, a New Zealand Pilsner, a wood-aged Baltic Porter, and a raw Saison, a no-boil Saison. He says, I have questions for some of these styles. He says, wood-aged Baltic Porter, I intend to dry cube a 19-liter batch with 50 grams of whiskey-soaked cubes for 14 days. Is this too much? I don't think so. Sounds about right. It's, not quite 2 ounces in a 5-gallon batch.
I always think it's like a time thing. It's like, keep tasting it.
Yeah.
And it gets
14 days. I think it'll be done in a week. I don't think you're going to get much from 7 days to 14 days. Right. But yeah, like Mike's saying, give it a taste. The raw Saison. How to achieve bitterness. Just whirlpool hops below 80 Celsius, 176 Fahrenheit. How do I know if he uses hop tea? How does he know how many IBU?
How many IBUs is a great question. Sounds like something you have to test a couple times. If we go back to Scott's last email, I think, it didn't come up, but he's covered it in his text. Aged hops gives you a better bitterness in the whirlpool.
Oh, interesting. Right, because the beta acids or
the alpha converts to.
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say at 80, 90 Celsius, you are getting isomerization. It just takes longer.
It's limited to 80 Celsius or below.
Yeah, so below 80 Celsius, you're probably getting
176 Fahrenheit. That's pretty much
25% of the isomerization.
Right. You're getting some.
Yeah.
So it depends how long. The thing is, Saison is not that bitter a beer anyways.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah.
So it's gonna you should have it ferment out as dry as possible. And that should accentuate any bitterness that's included. The other point I want to make is really I hate this raw beer thing. Somebody prove me wrong. Show me some actually good beers that are made with this raw, no boil
I
nonsense.
agree.
I'm just like, I don't know where this whole the love of this happened.
Send them in. We'll tell you what we think
Oh,
about
look,
them.
the giant cloud of hearts that were
Yeah, I saw
it
that.
just
Yeah.
it's just the chat.
Well, I also just think there's been so many proven benefits to boiling with beer flavor and
Right.
sulfur mitigation and all these things that you're trying to prepare for fermentation. It's like, why would you not boil? But I guess if these are the rules of the competition,
Sure, right,
you gotta do what you gotta do. But
right. There you go. All right, the braggot. Which beer styles are the best suited for a beer honey mix? I have an idea to make a triple IPA braggot. Could this work, or would it be too sweet? For me, I think our friend Michael Fairbrother at Moonlight Meadery out on the East Coast, he makes a really nice braggot with Russian Imperial Stout.
Oh,
Russian
interesting.
Imperial Stout's nice because I think you can up the roastiness of the Russian Imperial Stout, and that helps kind of counter some of the sweetness, and you can get just a great balance in there.
Very cool. I've never had one of those, like a braggot with stout. I have heard a lot of guys like an IPA for braggot. I guess the bitterness and the sweetness play.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a specific name for a dry hopped mead, which is getting towards a braggot. I can't remember what it's called though. But yeah, I think it's a good concept also, Mike.
Yeah. Just kind of like you guys are saying, you're trying to get balance, and what does mead bring? What does the beer bring? They should balance. That's all I would think is, the sweetness is a factor, and then what do you do on the other side to really bring that into a nice complex balance.
Thanks in advance and for the reply, and best regards, and good luck in your competition, Matthew. I'm sure you do well if you are a Brew Strong listener, because that's apparently what we do. We get people doing quite well in the brewing. All right, one more quick break, and then we'll wrap up right after this. All right, we're back. Listen to Brew Strong. We're doing live Q&A. Speaking of live, we've got William in the chat. He's been listening live. You can listen on Facebook when the shows are live. You can see video of our beautiful faces and all the things we're talking about. You see Bobby Bear in the back there, watching over because he's a big fan of the show. William asks, he comments, keep working on Brewing Classic Styles 2.0. When's that modern brewing book coming out? When's Blakeman coming out of retirement? Cheers. Working on Brewing Classic Styles 2.0, trying to get Palmer, engaged in doing water profiles for all the recipes. Getting that written up. The modern brewing book is coming out in the winter this year, 2024. I am currently struggling to finish parts of it, and getting it wrapped up. I got Travis and Mike doing some reviewing of the book for me, and then the manuscript has to be final by June 15th. So this is May 15th. So got a month left. Got a couple of weeks to kind of finish this up, and then we got to get the recipes in there and stuff like that. So end of fall, winter. They said that the book should be printed by sometime in late August, mid August, late August. So once that's done, the books will be out. So I'm hoping that I will be in England September 13th through the 15th to maybe sign books and do a little book release party thing. So we'll see, but that's the plan. When's Blickman coming out of retirement? I'm guessing probably about 3 months, but he's still actually working for Blickman Engineering, coming up with designing things, and he's involved. He's still doing things, but he did seem to enjoy like not going to the office every day. So he's still, so his retirement lasted like 24 hours, I think.
He was the boss. He could have set his own work from home rules. What the hell?
Right. Yeah, you think so. And then William says, Palmer, all caps, 3 exclamation points, quit touring and do your job. Let's get the goddamn Brewing Classic Styles book done. I will let him know that. I should email him and say, hey, let's get cracking on this. Let's see. All right, we're running out of time. One last comment from Derek. He says, hey guys, love the show. Learned a ton from listening and look forward to it. I was listening way back in the archives from the episode on foam. That is March 14th, 2016. Jamel talked about going to Boston and how some of his favorite beers he tried while there was from Maine Beer Company. Every beer they make is excellent, he says. As a Maine resident, I thought I'd chime in and let you know where the name Peeper Pale Ale comes from. Peepers are what frogs are called in the spring and the early summer because at dusk they make a loud, high-pitched chirping noise that sounds like a peep. There's usually thousands of them making the noise at once, and it is a welcome sound as it signifies the arrival of summertime in Maine. Around lakes, ponds, streams, etc., the noise can be a loud chorus that at certain times in early summer can even make it hard to sleep if you live at or near a body of water. Peepers are a staple of our favorite season here in Maine, and they're loved by residents and tourists alike. That's Derek from Maine. Oh, that's cool. That's nice to hear. Mm-hmm. One that he listens, and apparently he listens to what we're saying. It's cool to find out. I did not know where Peeper Pale Ale. I figured, they just had a lot of perverts or something in Maine, and
some sort of lawyer reference.
I don't know. Could be something like that. Who am I to judge? I've never been to Maine. I'd love to go to Maine, though. That's on the wife and I's list of places we want to visit. Is Maine. I love everything I've seen about Maine and heard about Maine. So I want to go. I definitely want to go.
And lobster and great beer.
There you go. All right. Well, another show done and dusted. And if you're listening and you want to know when we're doing more shows and you'd like to listen live, we have been sticking to a Wednesday schedule. Now, it's not every Wednesday, but generally once a month or so, we do a Wednesday show, and we put it on social media, and you can follow any one of us, and you will see how that show gets posted, usually at least a few days in advance, maybe a week. I don't post it too far in advance because I think people forget. So
people forget, yeah.
If you are interested in listening live, when you listen live, then you can ask your questions in the chat, and if not, send them in. We certainly don't mind answering them via email. You send them in to Brew Strong at the Brewing Network, Brew Strong at thebrewingnetwork.com, and we're answering them pretty quick. Usually you ask them and get in on the next show, if not the one right after that. And we'll definitely get them done. In the meantime, make sure you reach out to Blickman Engineering, blickmanengineering.com. Check out their website. Check out their 3.5, if you're interested in commercial brewing, check out their 3.5 barrel new electric brew surface. And what else do I have to say? Oh, check that out. Send an email to Drew at blickmanengineering.com. You can send it to feedback at blickmanengineering.com. Tell him how happy you are that you didn't have to pay for the show and that he did, and you really appreciate it, and you'll be a Blickman supporter because of it. So send that. Keep the show on the air. That's all we ask in return for the information. All right. I'm tired. It's been a long day. Yeah. Got up at 4 a.m. So I'm pretty much done for today. Until then, everybody, brew strong.
Brew strong.
Brew strong.